welcome. Oh, there you go.
Who's the violator?
Let's see if it's me.
Me, I'm not on.
Is it any better now? Must have been me.
No, it was me.
Oh, it was you? Okay. I wonder if I just turned my sound on. Oh, well.
That's right.
Anyway, welcome to the Albemarle Broadband Authority meeting. Looking around the room, I observed the presence of not only a quorum, but the entire membership of the Broadband Authority. For those of you who tried to tune in on October 25th, I apologize. We were able to muster a quorum, but we weren't going to be able to muster the quorum in the same room, and our rules require that we all be, at least have a quorum in the room before we start adding people who are participating remotely. So we had to postpone the meeting. So I'm going to call this meeting to order. Our first item on the agenda after that is approving the agenda. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at it? Any questions or concerns? Let's move that to be approved. Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's approved. By authority members. Anyone have anything? Very good. Moving right along. Public comment. This, for those of you who are tuned in remotely, this is the opportunity for members of the public, either here in the room or on the call electronic, to speak to the authority. To speak, just indicate by raising the raise hand function on the electronic call, or physically raise your hand here in the room. Give folks a second or two to click through that. And that's okay. There's no pressure to speak if you want to. Okay. I'm not seeing anyone making that indication, so we're going to move on. We've got a consent agenda, which has our financial report on it. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Second. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Consent agenda is approved. The September 27th meeting minutes. We've seen the September 27th meeting minutes?
No.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't seen the September 27th. So we're not going to have that. Postpone that to a following meeting. Item 7, old business. 2021 update.
I'll take that, Chair.
Okay, Mike, thank you.
Thank you, Board, for having us this evening. The Body 21 update is a letter of intent that Brightspeed crafted and has been through multiple rounds of review. As the Board recalls, we had a closed session meeting where we made some changes. Those changes were redirected to Brightspeed. Brightspeed accepted all practically, but yeah, everything looked good from that perspective. We also were hopeful that we would have a signature from DHCD, and Carl Caudell is also online with us, and realized that after we had put that acknowledgement that DHCD cannot sign on a agreement between two parties outside of their own. So since it is between the Broadband Authority and Brightspeed, instead DHCD will accept the letter once the chair has signed it, and then send us a letter that says we acknowledge that the letter between the Broadband Authority and Brightspeed is signed. So just to explain that little shortcoming. And then there was some redo of the construction cost differential, meaning because several locations, 29 or 36, depending on who's counting, but we're going to go with 29. Locations are not going to be served with this. The methodology that DHCD uses is different than the methodology that the Broadband Authority through BAAO used. So the number came up different.
The number of what DHCD was providing.
Yes, exactly.
Our numbers haven't changed.
Yeah, the retainage. Yep, the retainage is slightly different. So the retainage is different on the letter now than it was in the original. So those two changes were made. sent it around. Looks like it's a solid letter to move forward. The good news is that, you know, the 10 additional locations will be built, preferably before June 2024. I'm sure there's things that may get in the way of that, but DHCD has been very clear in their contract extension that we want to stay on that June 2024 as our goal. The unfortunate part of that is that there are 29 locations that will have to be notified, and Brightspeed has taken that as their task, with the caveat that if questions come back on, and obviously, you know, Brightspeed is not going to inherently talk to their potential, well, they're not potential customers anymore. They're probably DSL and landline customers, but fiber customers are no longer. So they will direct Jason and me for updates on who might be their fiber service provider and by when. So that's the only caveat that we have with those 29 locations left. So I think that's an update. You know, we've got where those locations are in case there were interested parties. The 9 locations along Gilbert Station Road on the right, and then the single location that makes 10 right there on Tillman Road near what was once Meriwether Lewis Elementary School. So yes, got it.
Are there any questions with regard to the proposed language in the new letter of intent, or any discussion on that topic?
Is there any action that's needed, or?
We need to vote to approve this, and direct me to sign it on behalf of the authority.
So moved. Second.
I'd just like to call up, I appreciate this was a whole thing. I know it was a lot of work for staff, and I appreciate the work that you did to get to this point. Obviously, it is frustrating that only 10 of those locations are agreed upon to be served, but I don't doubt that everybody did their best to make this happen. And I understand that as an organization, we're going to have to work to get all of those people eventually served too, but thanks for getting us to this point.
So it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. That motion is approved. And I will execute this letter and move this process along. Is that it for 2021 update? You want to go into 2022?
Yes, sir.
That'd be great. Let's do it.
So 2022 is our project through TJPDC with Firefly. The work continues. It's been challenging for various reasons. We do have connections happening in Red Hill, and they're soon to start happening in the Keene area. One of the reasons why I can pronounce that, or at least make it apparent, is that there's been a lot of challenges with railroad crossings. You know, just the railroads not cooperating as well as we had expected, especially since the new legislation was put in place earlier this year. We thought the railroads were going to step up to the plate, per se, or step up to the rails and do the work that's needed to be done to provide service to all Virginians. So there's a lot of work that has to happen. The fortunate thing is that Firefly worked diligently and got themselves in line and made sure that their process was successful. They had at least 6 railroad crossings done in mid to late October, and that's going to help the Keene area specifically. So there's a lot of work going on. We're very excited about the work that's going on with Dominion. Dominion Energy has made their submission to the SCC, just to update everyone on that. Submissions went in October. Unfortunately, the hearing is not until February. That doesn't mean that they're stopping work. So we do get quarterly updates, and we've heard more than once that Dominion's work is continuing because they feel confident that the SCC this disbursement, or at least the approvals, are going to happen. So if you look on the next page, the update, this is just a standard table that we received from TJPDC for the entire project, and we also have a breakdown for Albemarle, and things are moving along very well. DHC is very pleased with the progress that this project is making. We look forward to continuing to work with Firefly. And that probably brings us to the end of 22, unless there are questions about how that's proceeding.
You have this also in an Albemarle only version?
Yes, we do.
That would generally be more interesting to us.
Okay.
I would think. I mean,
Yeah, it's like 82 miles.
it's delightful some of the other counties are getting their part, but I'm really more focused on us.
Yeah. Okay. I'll send that one around.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, I'll turn it over to Jason.
3 quick bullets on the BAAO report to discuss where we are with the ARPA grant that we're working on with Firefly. Talk about the digital navigator pilot that we were able to announce Digital Inclusion Week last month, and then the BEAD challenge process briefly. No changes on the grant scope. As we previously discussed, one of our goals with this is to address any orphaned locations. That includes locations that are being orphaned in Body 21. We are working on 2 fronts. One with the county attorney's office to get the language of the agreement finalized, but additionally to get the exact locations finalized at the specified cost. There is a pending letter of intent at TJPDC with Firefly that includes Albemarle County, but does not include any specific locations. We also submitted a letter of intent in the event that there's something necessary. We are not expecting to bring a match. Rather, we believe that there are going to be possibly a few locations that aren't going to be a good fit for the TJPDC application. That we might submit separately with a match coming from a provider yet to be chosen. That project or that possibility is something that we're going to discuss more with Firefly over the coming weeks. They plan to get us a schedule of when they plan to roll out each individual project area at a quarterly level sometime next week, and we'll also be discussing with them any other locations they might be able to add to the project. Any questions there? And I'd like to issue our thanks to the authority for the transfer of funds that helped make this possible, and obviously a big thanks to the Board of Supervisors for its additional funding to make to help reach 2 point for the project.
It's exciting to see those funds put to good use.
It's exciting to know that we've got them and that we can inch ever closer to universal access. So during Digital Inclusion Week, we were able to announce a pilot project that's going to deploy digital navigators throughout the area. This is going to be a collaboration between the Jefferson Area Board for Aging, which will actually be the hire for this, but it's going to be in collaboration with the entire Digital Equity Coalition. The partnership is funded through support from, along with the Center for Civic Innovation. And the goal is to hire very soon to hold a training with the National Digital Inclusion Alliance in December. And that would be when the program would start and would last about 6 months. The goal is to have an opportunity to work with our community partners, have them get a feel for what it's like to have a digital navigator serving their community, and then plans for grant applications in the spring and summer, Equity Act, and BEAD funding that should be coming down around that timeline. Any questions on this one?
How many navigators do you think?
It's going to be somewhere in the realm of 2 to 3 right now. If that's how much funding we have kind of committed. If this is a particularly successful pilot, we might look at opportunities to pursue more funding to expand the pilot in scale, not length.
Looking ahead to that, I'm thinking about my father, for example, who's a good example of someone who might have been able to use this help. How are you going to measure the success?
That's a great question. One metric that is commonly discussed is touches. That is how many community interactions your navigators are doing. That's just it's demonstration of utilization. In terms of metrics, we will also be looking at the individual clients. So when you look at a community partner like Java, they sense of what the right outcomes communities. So we're going to be working with them to try to ferret out what the appropriate metrics within a community is. The other goal is to increase utilization of resources that currently exist. So the Affordable Connectivity Program for sure, but also the digital skills resources that are available, both statewide through Computer Corps, as well as locally through TJ ACE.
Just opining here, because I have no expertise in this area, but it would feel to me like if you were able to get feedback, little standardization, but even anecdotal feedback at the sub-client level, the individual level, people who've received some training and now can make better use of the digital tools that are available to them. Just a simple yes, no, I can do better now than I could before, and then maybe an anecdote, what are you able to do? That could make a really powerful story if it's very successful and be compelling in terms of this needs more funding because there's a lot of people that can get more advantage out of it.
And the digital navigator model training that NDIA uses includes a skills assessment. And that skills assessment is intended to be revisited periodically, specifically to demonstrate advancement.
And I'm not thinking something that's very heavy, something very lightweight. But anyway.
Yeah, I will say we did get 2 questions onto the biennial community survey, and our intention is to track the outcomes, and both of those have to do with sentiment, which is something that can be a little squishy at times, but it's also a really good indicator of where the vector is moving. And so this initial, the 2 questions are, how challenging do you perceive it to be to access digital resources? And how challenging do you believe to access digital resources? And ideally, whatever the current sentiment is, we'll be moving in a positive direction 2 years hence when we look at it again. Any other questions on that? I'll just say, when a job posting for this is available, that widely, and I would welcome if any of you all would share that with your communities. That would be wonderful, because we're definitely looking on to hire quickly. Now onto the BEAD challenge process.
This is a bit of an
Well, it's a star chart, actually.
I encourage everybody to visit this soon, but the BEAD challenge process has begun. The state received approval of volume 1 of the initial proposal on Wednesday of last week, and as a result, 7 days hence, they opened the challenge portal. It'll be open until November 30th. We will share more details about how all of us can get engaged, but we wanted to show it to you. There are a couple of kinks that DHCD is working out to correct some things that were inaccurate. The goal is kind of threefold. One is to correct any inaccurate unserved locations. And there, in particular, if you can see the map, just south of the city, there's a number of CVEC areas that are listed of VADI areas that are listed as unserved. Those we obviously want to move into the served column because they are actually currently customers. There are also issues with CAIs, community anchor institutions, and so we will distribute instruction for how to evaluate any CAIs to make sure that they are included. CAIs are distinct from residential and business locations because they are required to be served at gigabit symmetrical. And so it presents a real opportunity for some of our community partners, as well as county and schools locations to be accurately identified and to have the speeds at that location accurately identified. So that way, if there's an opportunity to get symmetrical gigabit service to those locations, we can. As I said, the challenge window closes on November 30th. And at that point, we enter kind of a 2-month period where rebuttals and then DHCD determinations will be made. We have reached out to providers, and we've also reached out to a number of CAIs, but we welcome any other lists of CAIs that we might not have previously identified to make sure that their locations are accurately represented in the data. Yeah.
I coincidentally, unrelated to my work here, met with Chandler Vaughn at DHCD a few weeks ago, and he mentioned to me that half of all of the challenges in the prior round, 60,000 of them came from Virginia.
Yeah.
So we're doing a good job. It's amazing.
We're engaged.
Challenge process.
Exactly. They do not intend this to be a contentious process. In general, any inaccuracies are going to be accepted and aren't going to be fought over. So we're confident. If we go back to the map, there are an awful lot of dots on there. We are confident that the accurate number of dots is somewhat.
They're in black. Some dots are in black. I want to challenge the map.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, the layout of it.
There are some high contrast options. There are some other options that we could have selected. Unfortunately, we couldn't fit the whole county and make the dots bigger. That was not an option. But
We'll take your word for it.
there are a large number of dots on there that are shown as unserved. We are confident that as low as maybe 30 and no higher than about 200, and all of those will be addressed by 2025.
And needless to say, we want to absolutely make sure that anyone who is in fact unserved shows up on the map.
Exactly.
Right.
And so to that end, we're going to engage with Kate on an effort to spread that the website works, and two, that our instructions to community members are accurate before communication about it.
Okay. That's it from the BAAO.
That's
Thank
all.
you very much. Our next item is new business. Does anyone have any new business? We're not required to, so wonderful. Any other matters to bring before the authority?
Our meetings are going to get very short once the body 2021 stuff is finally done.
Well, we could.
It's a good problem.
I'd be happy to show you some knitting techniques I've been working on.
I have been learning how to knit, and I would actually appreciate
There
that.
we go. All right. So maybe.
So the Indian style, I'm told I should learn instead of
Oh,
American.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we gotta talk. All right. Seeing that there's obviously no further broadband authority business available, I'd like to move to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We stand adjourned. Thank you all very much. We may have set a new record.
Next meeting is December 5th.
Yes,
So this,
Tuesday.
we hadn't scheduled one in November. This was the
Right.
continuation.
Thank you,
So it's
Chris.
December 5th.
And I will not be able to